guys, and welcome to another video. Today I am going to be filming my July wrap-up and my very tiny August TBR for you guys. This month, with the booktubeathon and with everything else that has been happening, like college and stuff, I have been like super busy, but I managed to read 15 books. And with that, we will just get started. The first book I read this month was The One by Kiera Cass. And this is the third and final book in the Selection trilogy, and I really enjoy this trilogy. It's just one of those that the story may not be the best, the character may not be the best, but I'm so involved in it that I had to keep reading because it was just too much for me to not keep reading. And oh, this last book, oh my gosh, it was so good. I really enjoyed this book. I got so invested in the characters, and I loved how we got to know the other girls who were in the competition a little bit better, because I always got them so confused. But now, if you were to ask me who was who, I'd totally be able to tell you. And I really enjoyed this book. I almost cried at the end because it was over, because I realized that these characters are gone. But I just really enjoyed this book, and I would say that if you are kind of apprehensive about this trilogy, just go in, and if you don't like it, that's not bad, but definitely give it a try because I really enjoy it, and it's just fun. It's fun. I gave this book a 4.5 out of 5 stars. The next book I read was Sold by Patricia McCormick. This book is about a little girl who I believe lives in Pakistan, and she lives with her mom and her stepdad gambles off all their money, and her mom can't really like provide for her that much, so her stepdad sells her into prostitution. She thinks that she's going to be a maid, but he actually sells her into prostitution, and we just follow this 13-year-old girl as she goes through that. And I was really excited to pick up this book, but I do have to say I was a little bit disappointed because of the way that it was written. I feel like this was a really tough subject and a really dark subject, something that you probably wouldn't read about most of the time, which I was really excited about, but the way that it was written was kind of like light and flouncy and kind of childish. It felt like I was reading middle grade, and it was really weird because I felt like with a topic that is this heavy, I felt like it shouldn't be that light. And I don't know if it's just because I'm getting older and I expect things like that, or if it was the writing style itself. But I did give it a 3 out of 5 stars. It was a really educational book for me. It was very interesting to read about this little girl's story. So I did enjoy it, but it was very different from what I thought it was going to be. The third book I read was Dreamland by Sarah Dessen. This book is about Caitlin, and on the day of her birthday, her big sister runs away right before she was about to go to college. So this book is about how it affects her family, and then Caitlin gets a new boyfriend, and he ends up being somewhat abusive to her. I thought this was going to be my favorite Sarah Dessen, but right now, out of the, I think, 3 Sarah Dessen books that I have read, I'm really confused and disappointed a little bit, because I feel like her writing style is very passive, and that really connects me to the characters, because I feel like the characters are passive, so then I know what kind of people these people are. But it was so hard for me to connect to the secondary characters in this book because the main character just was so passive about everything, and like something that I thought should be described in detail, she would just be like, oh, and then this happened, and then that happened, and yay, we're done. And then the things that were in detail I didn't feel were very important to the story. I gave this book a 3 out of 5 stars. I did enjoy it. It just wasn't what I thought I would have liked. I don't know. Right now I'm kind of nervous about Sarah Dessen books from now on. Then I read There Will Come a Time by Carrie Arcos, I believe, and I read this with my best friend Gabby. This book is about a boy named Mark whose twin sister Grace had died in the months before the book starts, and it's just about him kind of coping with that. And then he finds Grace's diary, and it has 5 things she wanted to do, I believe that year or something. So Mark and Grace's best friend go together and try to do all the stuff on her like bucket list, and I was really excited for this book. It was a book that we decided to read on a whim because it looked really cool at the library. One thing that I really enjoyed about this book was the main character was Filipino, and I I don't think I've ever read a book where the main character was Asian, and I really love reading books with people of color as the main characters because it's such a different experience. I believe, like, you get to know things about, like, their culture as growing up as something different, and it's really, really great. And I love reading about anyone despite their color, but it's really interesting to me to be able to see, like, differences with people of color compared to other books. This book was really different for me. I really liked how it ended, and I liked the second half, but the first half I was really close to stopping. It just didn't really hit that bar that I thought it was going to hit. It wasn't the book that I thought I was getting. I ended up giving it a 3 out of 5 stars. It was a good book, but just not something that I was expecting. Now we're starting with the books that I read for the booktubeathon. The first book I picked up for the booktubeathon was My Life After Now by Jessica Verdi. I was so excited to pick up this book, and I'm really glad that I did. This book is about a girl named Lucy, and she's a drama kid, which I think is probably one of the main reasons why I enjoyed this book so much, because I'm a drama kid and all the references that she was making were really awesome. And Lucy breaks up with her boyfriend, and she's having the worst week ever, so she goes out and parties, and she contracts HIV. This book was a gem. I loved this book. If you guys watch my videos a lot, you know that I love reading about taboo subjects or things that most people wouldn't write about, because I love seeing how the author handles it and see how it is to be something different in the world, or to read something different in the world. And this was so good. I think one of my favorite things about this book was that the title chapters were Broadway songs, and I would just, like, sing the songs in my head because I knew all of them, and it made me so happy. I ended up giving this book a 4 out of 5 stars. I would really recommend this book to you guys. It was a very different experience, and I just gobbled it up. I loved it. The second book I picked up for the booktubeathon was Kissing Kate by Lauren Miracle. This book is about a girl named Lisa, and she and her best friend Kate kissed at a party, and now Kate isn't talking to her, so we just kind of follow Lisa as she's trying to figure out what she did wrong or what's going through Kate's mind. And I did not like this book at all. I didn't really like any of the characters. I felt like it went on too many tangents, and with a book this small, it shouldn't go on any tangents, and it went on a lot of them, so I just didn't enjoy this book at all. I ended up giving it a 2 out of 5 stars. The second book I read for the booktubeathon is A Summer to Die by Lois Lowry. This book is about a girl named Meg, and her family moves to, like, the country for the winter, so then her father can work on his book and they can just get away for a little bit. And then her big sister gets sick, and we're just following Meg and her feelings through that. And I think the main reason why I did not enjoy this book is because with what is written on the back, which is pretty much exactly what I told you guys, just condensed, and the title, you know exactly what's going to happen in this book. Exactly. Nothing was a surprise to me. It was kind of anticlimactic. This was just a disappointment for me. I ended up giving it a 2 out of 5 stars, and I was kind of being nice with that rating. The next book I read for the booktubeathon was Bird by Crystal Chan. And guys, oh my gosh, this book is a gem. It is the diamond in the rough. It is the thing that I have been looking for the longest time. Before this book, I had not read a 5-star book in 6 months. I was starting to think that there was something wrong with me and just books didn't do it for me or anything. But then this book, this beautiful book, it just got me, and oh, it's so good. This book is about a girl named Jewel, and on the day she was born, her 5-year-old brother, Bird, jumped off a cliff because his grandpa had always called him Bird, and he thought one day that he was just going to fly. So he decided to make it happen himself, and he jumped off a cliff, and he died. So we are following Jewel with her dysfunctional family. Her grandfather doesn't talk anymore because Bird is gone, and he feels like it's his fault. Her mom and dad, like, always fight all the time because her dad is Jamaican, and he has a whole bunch of, like, things that he believes in because of his culture that her mom just thinks are ridiculous. And I loved this book because Jewel meets a young boy, and their friendship just, the way that their friendship is built is one of the most genuine friendships I have ever read in my whole entire life. And it's so good. I think I love this even more because Jewel is half Jamaican and a quarter white and a quarter Mexican. So this added a whole bunch of culture things that I learned about, things that I never knew about before, and just like the struggles that she went through as a multiracial child was amazing. And the amount of just culture and realness that was jam-packed into this book was amazing. As you can see, there were so many stickies that I put into this book, probably the most that I've put in a long time. The end of this book had me bawling, like bawling my eyes out. It was so good. The first book that I've cried with in a long time, and I just loved this book. The first sentence took me in, and I didn't come out until the end of the book. So this 5 out of 5 stars, one of the best books that I read this year. So good. Pick it up if you can. The next book I read for the Booktubeathon is Girls in Pants, The Third Summer of the Sisterhood by Anne Bashars. I loved reading this book right now because, as you all know, I'm going to college this fall, and all the girls in this book are going to college this fall. So it's really exciting because we were in the same exact place. And so I love this book. It was really great. I think my favorite girl in this book was Bridget, even though I love all of them. I just loved Bridget's commentary this time. And I ended up giving this 4 out of 5 stars. Great book. Really enjoyed it. Then I read The Night Circus by Erin Morgenstern, also for the Booktubeathon. And I have been dreading this book forever. I was dreading it because of the third person present tense. And the librarians at my library bought me this copy. So I said that I was going to read it, and I did. And I have to apologize because I really enjoyed this book. It was great. I've never read a book that was this mystical and whimsical and crazy. It was just really great. Towards the middle of the book, it kind of fell a little bit, but then it picked itself right up, and it was a really long book. I think that's probably one of the reasons why I had a hard time keeping my attention for a very long time, and it took me quite a while to read. But in the end, I gave it a 4 out of 5 stars. It was really great, and I would advise you reading it if you were a little apprehensive because it's really good. Then I read You Are Not Here by Samantha Schultz. We're just gonna, yeah. And this book is about a girl named Analia, and her boyfriend Brian just died, and no one knew about her. So it's a book in verse just talking about her and how she's dealing with that. And I did not like this book. And I've realized with a theme that I have with people disappearing or dying previous to the book when it starts. So if they died before the book starts, it's so hard for me to feel for that person, and I know that sounds horrible, but this book sadly came off as kind of a pity party because she would just talk about Brian in a way that was so hard for me to relate to because I didn't know him myself. And I also think it's because of the writing, because it was a little whiny, but it's so hard for me to connect to books where someone dies or disappears previous to the book without any flashbacks or real actually going back to a time before the book started and getting to know this person. And I ended up giving this book a 2 out of 5 stars. I didn't enjoy it at all. And the final book that I read for the Booktubeathon was I'll Be Seeing You by Lorraine McDaniel. This book was... I did not like this at all. I don't know what to say. I gave it a 2 out of 5 stars. I didn't like it. And I picked up The Living Dead Girl by Elizabeth Scott, and I was excited for this book. But I think that I have a little bit of a problem with Elizabeth Scott because her topics always tend to be something that I'm really interested in. It's just the way that it's written that really bugs me. I finished this book in a day. It was very compelling. I wanted to read it. It was easy to read. But then after I finished it, I was just like, okay. I just really had a hard time connecting with these characters because of the writing style and the length of the book, and yeah, I hope that makes sense. I ended up giving this book a 3.5 out of 5 stars. I did enjoy the overall story, but I was not satisfied. The final book that I read this month was Almost Perfect by Brian Catcher, and this book is about a boy named Logan, and he just broke up with his girlfriend, and he's just kind of really miserable, and he doesn't really just going on with his life until a girl named Sage comes to his school, and he starts falling for her, but Sage is really closed off and he doesn't know why until Sage breaks the news to him that she is transgender and is actually a boy. So, what? Okay, well, yeah, I was so excited to read this book. You have no idea. It's been on my list forever, and I just wanted to see how this topic was handled because it's one that I am so interested in, and this was amazing, and I can't even explain the feelings I had toward this book. Sage was my favorite. I always say how, like, I want to be friends with characters in a book, but if I were friends with Sage, it would be like the best thing ever because she would be my best friend. I love Sage. She was quirky and cute and not afraid to say what was on her mind, but then there was also a second side to her where that was a little more soft and sweet, and I just loved her. Logan, the main character, was not my favorite person. He made me upset sometimes. I wanted to smack him over the head. I wish this whole book was in Sage's point of view, but it wasn't. So I enjoyed this. There were a few minor things. I wasn't really satisfied with the ending, but can't really say much about that. And yeah, it was good. I gave it a 4 out of 5 stars. Really great. I want Sage to be my friend. That's all for what I read in the month of July. And August is kind of a really interesting month because I have to do all this stuff for college. So I'm trying to finish the books that I am reading right now. And the only book that I think I'm going to pick up is If I Stay by Gail Forman. Thank you guys for watching this video, and I will see you in the next one. Goodbye!